BN is 3-0 currently in match play.
And looks like we started up pretty well synced to start with here.
Yes, indeed, we are underway. So, both of these players are going to head for the first Magic Cave, and what these players are going to be hoping for is they're going to be hoping to get the 1 out of 8 chance of getting the 50-point P bag drop from the final enemy of this cave. Now, in the process, they're also going to get this magic container, 1 of 4, hidden throughout the entire game.
Yes, now the question was brought up in chat what all keys means here. So this race is actually 100% all keys. Now what that means is twofold. First off, the 100% portion of things means that every item, every magic spell, and every attack technique need to be gotten. The all keys means that you need to have a key to open every door. It doesn't mean necessarily you need to use every key on a door, but you need a key for every door. And I say that because there are a couple of locations in the game that you can ceiling walk and walk over a door without a key, but you still would need the key to go ahead and unlock it. And to immediately address what's going on here, Laws mentioned the 50-point P bag that was needed. Neither one of them got it, so they're both going here and doing what's called early trophy cave, so they can get that extra experience, so they can manipulate their experience, so they have the coveted attack 4 value coming out of Palace 1.
Or as I like to call the trophy TGE, the Christmas tree ornament that you put on top, because it does look like an angel that you put on the tree.
Well, interesting note, in the FDS version actually is referred to as an angel, but they took it out because of localization. They thought angel was too religious.
Right, understandable back in those days. So both of these are in the first town of the game, the town of Rauru, and both of them are going to pick up the shield spell. And what that does is when they use it on a particular screen, the amount of damage they take will be reduced to 1/2, but it's only good for one screen.
It also has the added bonus of changing Link's tunic color to a snazzy red.
Well, absolutely. It's always nice to see Link in the red tunic. Of course, no blue tunics in this game like there is in Zelda 1.
Yeah, so to address the experience that I was mentioning earlier, as you can see on the top, there are 3 values, attack, magic, and life. And the one that takes the most to level up is attack. So we're going to do our best to get that up as quick as possible.
Absolutely. Again, as you had mentioned, TGE, what they're hoping for to get out of Parappa Palace, the first palace of the game, they're hoping to have magic attack, attack level 4. Now, there is that small chance, I believe for both of them, there's a 25% chance that if they don't get either P-Bag drop, unfortunately, they're going to be out of luck coming out of Palace 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And the P-Bag drops that Laws is referring to is there are 3 sets of enemies in this game. The non-item dropping enemies, we really don't care about them. These small item dropping enemies, and you didn't really see them, but you saw them die there in that first cave. And then the large item dropping enemies, or the big 6 enemies. So that's the group we want to be attacking. And they're called Big 6 because every 6th enemy will drop an item. And for these big enemies, there's a 50% chance they'll drop a 200 experience point P-Bag, and a 50% chance they'll drop a red jar. Now, the earlier in the game, we want to see P-Bags. Later on in the game, we want to see red jars.
Unfortunately, both Feasel and BentGlassTube were unable to get the bubble encounter skip on the way to the first bonus heart container.
Yeah, and the thing about this bubble screen is the way you see Feasel going right now, it's infinitely more difficult to go that way than it is the other way, simply because the bubbles, when you get hit by them, tend to knock you to the right. So there's a chance if you are jumping from left to right and get hit by a bubble, it will just damage boost you to the other ledge. But walking from left to right, from right to left, it has a chance to just knock you into the water, and water is instant death.
Absolutely, and without a fairy spell, there's nothing they can do to get out of it. Feasel has made it to Parappa Palace first. So, the item here in the Parappa Palace is the candle, and the candle is used to see in the caves that they couldn't see earlier, like the first magic cave, the trophy cave, and the cave that surrounds Palace 1 that just has a lonely louder in it.
Yep, and the candle, this is the only category of Zelda 2 that actually gets the candle. Every other category does all those caves without the candle. And yes, you can kind of see what's going on with them, but for a racing format, I'm not going to lie, candle is great because you guys get to see what's going on, we get to see what's going on. There's no secrets between friends.
And my goodness, I can't imagine playing this game without the candle. I mean, when I played this game a long time ago, I could barely beat it with the candle because Death Mountain, let's face it, is a pain in the rear end.
Yeah, I actually did this on stream about a month ago. I got to about Palace 5 before I had to stop. But Death Mountain, oh, and we'll explain why Death Mountain's a pain when we get to it, because there are a couple of enemies there. Ooh, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. BentGlassTube was able to get the lucky 1 out of 8 chance of the 50-point P-bag drop. That's not necessarily what he's looking for. What he really wants to see are the 200-point P-bag drops. He's also getting that 50-point P-bag drop. Small P-bags for days, folks.
Yep. Now you notice feasel jump over a Stalfos, and the reason he did is, again, I mentioned that big 6 enemy dropping group. Well, Stalfos are part of that. BentGlassTube not doing that, but the reason feasel jumped over is because Stalfos are worth 30 experience, whereas the other enemies here, like this Doom Rattler, for example, they're worth 50 experience. So by killing the Doom Rattler and then getting the drop off the Stalfos, if you don't get the P-bag, you still get the extra 20 from the 50 versus the 30.
Absolutely.
Yeah, now, continuing on for the manipulating experience, what we are looking to do is we are looking to maximize the amount of experience we get from the end of Palace rewards. And what I mean by that is there is a gem that you put into a stone pillar at the end of each palace. And what that gem is going to do is going to give our runners the maximum amount of experience needed to get to the next level. So as you can see on BentGlassTube's side right now, he is at 112 out of 500. That's the next to attack level. They want to be at attack 3 with a minimum of 50 experience going into the boss fight here in Palace 1. Because the boss of Palace 1, Horsehead, gives 50 experience, which will put them up to 100, which is the next life level, so that way they can get to the 1,000 for what they're going to need for attack 4. And the reason they want attack 4 coming out of Palace 1 here is because attack 4 makes Death Mountain so much easier.
Absolutely right, because there are some enemies in Death Mountain that can be a nightmare, especially if you're a beginner Zelda 2 player. Nice dodging of those bots there on Feasel's side. BentGlassTube gets the 50-point P-bag that's on the disintegrating bridge, but he is not so lucky with those bots. And as small as bots are, folks, they are very dangerous in a Zelda 2 speedrun.
Bots are horrible.
Oh, BentGlassTube gets the lucky P-bag drop right there, so he is going to pretty much guarantee himself the attack level 4 now. I think he just needed one of the 2 P-bags.
Yep. By making sure you get that extra 50-point P-bag, you are guaranteed with one of the 2 drops, as long as you do your proper manipulations and proper kills, to be perfectly fine when it comes to getting attack 4 coming out of Palace 1.
Now, looking at the numbers on Feasel's side, I don't think he got the first P-bag. I think he got a red jar drop on his side, considering the deficit. Absolutely.
So he's hoping that this Iron Knuckle here is going to give him what he wants. Nope.
Oh, that is unfortunate. So Feasel will not be able to get attack 4 out of Palace 1. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, Feasel's going to be doing attack 3, but Feasel's been playing this game for a long time, and attack 3, while it's going to slow him down a little bit, it shouldn't be too big of an issue for him.
Not at all, because we saw, and by the way, it is still possible to make up the ground later on. In fact, I saw it in the race that I quote-unquote called last night. Cantaloupe got out of Palace 1. He was only at attack level 3, and he was able to make the comeback to get to where he needed to be later on. So there is still time to get the experience points back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the big thing with attack 3 Death Mountain is it's going to make it a little more difficult because you want to be at attack 6 leaving Palace 2, which means somewhere between Death Mountain and Palace 2, or in the middle of Palace 2, you want to hit Attack 5. And that's what having Attack 3 makes it a little bit more difficult, is just having to kill so many extra things. And speaking of killing things, all the P bags for days for a BentGlassTube doesn't even need it because he knows he's getting the end of Palace bonus. So just sitting there sort of taunting him like, you're going to need this later and you ain't getting it, brother.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes that's going to happen. The rich get richer, and that's the players that are going to get more P bags. But then when you really need the P bags, you don't end up getting them. But as you said, later on, you want to see more red jar drops because magic is everything in this game because they're going to be using it and using it quite often.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've already discussed attack, and leveling up your attack is going to, well, just increase your damage output. Now let's move to the magic side of things because we just got mentioned. We'll move to the bars in general. Both the magic and life, you see them segmented by bars. Every one of those bars is worth 16 points, whether it's hit points or magic points. Now, in this game, 128 is the maximum you can get for both magic and life. Leveling up them will not increase your MP. Instead, what it will do is for magic, leveling up your magic will actually decrease the cost of the spells you can cast, and leveling up your life will actually increase your defense.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, because I was seeing Simple Dude on YouTube. He was doing like a 118 challenge, a 181 challenge, an 811 challenge, and believe me, when you have life 1 against the Thunderbird, you should see how much health it takes. It's like 7 full bars, I believe.
Yeah, but we're not going to see that. More than likely, we're going to see the common route for this is 886. Although I have seen 878, I've seen 788, 887. So there are many final leveling paths, but the big thing that's going to be, for the most part, consistent is getting attack leveled up as fast as possible.
Here, BentGlassTube is in the town of Rudo. Now, by getting to the trophy cave, he can return that trophy to the rightful owner to get the jump spell. Jump spell is needed pretty much immediately after you leave the town of Rudo because of that tall jump that Feasel just conquered.
Yeah, now it is possible to get up there with a damage boost, but it's very hard to manipulate the bat you need. So getting jump is, well, 1, required, and 2, strictly easier.
Oh, Feasel took the encounter right on Bagu's house. Boy, tough break there.
Yep, so what happened there is there are forced encounter tiles on the overworld. Some of them are good, like Bagu's house. Some of them are bad, like that bubble encounter before the heart. If you happen to run into an overworld encounter enemy, on the same time you would access a overworld encounter, the enemy will override it. Now, this is good most of the time because the overworld encounters are strictly less dangerous than the fixed encounters usually. That's a trick you're going to see put into play later, but it's never a good thing at Bagu.
Yeah, absolutely, because that was almost going to be a perfect trek to Bagu's house, but yep, the encounters decided to troll him at the very last possible moment. Feasel's here is in the town of Saria. A couple things on the agenda. He's just picked up the mirror inside that house. Why a mirror would be lying on the house and nobody is there is beyond me. I guess they wanted to avoid 7 years of bad luck by somebody else breaking the mirror, but what do I know? Anyway, he's going to return that...
He's reflecting on past times, Laws, that's all.
Ah, good point there, TGE. But anyways, by returning the mirror to the rightful owner, Feasel is going to get the life spell. And what that does is, by using it, he's going to recover 3 full lost bars of life. It does cost quite a bit of magic, but it is a spell you're going to see these players use quite a lot during this race.
And real quick, the life spell is actually a quick little shout out to the fairy from Zelda 1, because as Lots mentioned, the life spell here recovers 3 bars. Whenever you got a fairy in Zelda 1, it recovered 3 hearts.
BentGlassTube was not so lucky with the Bagu trek. He ended up taking 2 encounters.
Feels Bagu, man.
Yep, that's for sure.
But the reason we need to go visit Bagu, as Feasel just showed you, is to get a note from him to show to the Riverman so we can get to the other side of Saria. And what's on the other side of Saria, you ask? Well, that little thing we've been teasing you guys about called Death Mountain.
Yep, that's right, folks. Death Mountain. It's a maze full of many, many caverns and a lot of treacherous enemies. Now, here in the beginning part, it's not too bad. You've got these bots, some moblins, some louders, some octoroks, some gorillas, but you don't want to be taking damage to these enemies, and you'll see why in just a few moments.
Yeah, I'm just going to tease you the name right now. They're called Dairas.
Yes,
Keyword,
indeed.
die.
Exactly. Or, if you want to play a very bad pun on it, Dairas can give the players diarrhea.
Or with all them axes, a pretty splitting headache.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll be coming up very shortly, folks. And they're definitely enemies you don't want to mess with. And you can't time their attacks properly, and if you can't land those sword hits, it's going to be a long day. And speaking of which, here he is.
Orange ones, those aren't the problem.
No. The problem is
It's
going to
the
be
red
coming up.
ones.
Yeah, the red ones, and you'll see why in just a few minutes. Now, here's another enemy that can be very troublesome. These bagos here. Not only are they a nuisance, you never know where they're going to come up and when they're going to fire those rocks at you. If you get hit by them, you lose experience points. And here it comes, folks. Red Daira.
Very good fight there from Feasel. Now, the reason the red Dairas are a pain is because they throw the axes at you, and they tend to throw them in sets of 2. So if you don't get the rhythm down, they're just going to completely wreck your face. I know this because I died in that room several times during my playthrough of this game, and red Dairas can go die in a fire that burns hotter than the 7 hells.
Absolutely. Now, here, Feasel had no problem with that orange diver, but yeah, they like to throw double or sometimes even triple axe at you. If you're not quick on your feet, yeah, they pack a punch and you can die quick spell.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you did mention the fact that this was a maze here, but it's pretty easy to figure out the way through the maze. Excuse me, it's another red jar. Just keep going right until you can't anymore, then follow the path. That is the fastest way through Death Mountain, and it'll lead you where you need to go every time.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of Death Mountain, for those of you who have played Zelda 1, Death Mountain, if you recall, was the location of Ganon's lair, which was at Spectacle Rock. Conveniently enough, where we're at currently, where we're going to find this hammer item, is in fact Spectacle Rock. This is the right side of Spectacle Rock, and once we get the hammer, we're going to crack open the left side, where level 9 was in the original game, and we're going to find some remnants of Ganon, which is a magic container. Now, before you ask, why does it look so different? Well, the reason is that 6 years have passed in game time, and Link in Zelda 1 was 10, so everything looked much bigger to him. Now he's 16, and he's like, well, this world ain't that big. And poor Feasel scrolled the Daira off screen, so he's going to actually go back up the elevator and go back down again to respawn it because he wants that experience.
Yeah, remember, he did not get attack 4 out of Palace 1, so every experience points to Feasel counts right about now. And that was a very good Daira fight. He'll get the 100 and will go to attack level 4 right now. But BentGlassTube is currently sitting at 422.
And also had a very nice red Daira fight there. Sees another 50-point P-Bag drop. Wow, that's like, what, 3 or 4 50-point P-Bags we've seen? Experience for days, man, for days.
And this is not the first time, TGE, that I've seen P-Bag drops for days. There was a race I did. It was either Thursday night or Friday night. I think it was Thursday night. I think it was like the second or third race that I did that I was calling with Rep and forget who. I think it was Reznor as well. I was calling that race. It was like nothing but 50-point P-Bags. Blue jars were nowhere to be found.
But Feasel there picked up the hammer item, which does a couple of things. One, it's going to smash rocks in the overworld, which we're going to see in a minute. But this hammer has a new feature. You can turn around and use the axe end to cut down trees.
Yep, and we will see that come into play later on.
Well, speaking of jars, we just had a blue and a red jar spawn for BentGlassTube. And there's a blue one for Feasel.
I guess the game heard us, TGE, because the game knows.
Yeah, the game is just being a little jarring, that's all.
Good one, TGE. We know who we can always turn to and trust regarding puns. Ooh, some bot damage there on BGT's side.
And there is the 6th magic container for Feasel.
Yep, so he's one step closer. And by the way, when I get to the 7th one, I always like to talk about what the chain reaction is in terms of the magic containers, but I'll get to that when we get to that 7th magic container.
Are you setting me up so I don't take your lines?
We'll see. It depends if you usually do something there or not, because I remember the race that I saw you call, I only caught the tail end, so whatever you do during that part is behind closed doors almost.
Yeah,
me.
no, I'm going to tease people now. There's only one thing. One thing. And for those of you who've seen this before, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's coming soon.
Very soon. But anyways, Feasel's on this double bridge here. First part's not too bad. You got a couple of moblins and a louder to deal with. But this part can be a little bit tricky. You got those bubbles. Yep, they're back. And look what else is back. This red Dyra. Just this one red Dyra, though, and he makes quick work out of him. Nice screen there for Feasel.
Yeah, that bridge is a pain. Red Dyers are a pain enough as it is, but then, oh god. So what we have coming up here is Feasel gets an encounter directly one step to the left of that rock. And then if he does his walking properly, he will not get an encounter from there to this cave he's going into, which is Medicine Cave. This is a trick known as the Boulder Dash. Looks like he's executed absolutely perfectly. There we go. 0 encounters to the Medicine Cave.
Well done there for Feasel. He's going to go into this cave. A couple of treacherous parts. First, another set of these bag of bags. Ooh, he's going to lose a little bit of experience there. He got popped by that one. Very unfortunate. And then the second one, you can get quite a bit of experience, is you got 3 Dyras. 1 orange, 2 red. Let's see how he handles them.
I'm going to guess he kills them.
Well, yeah, he's going to kill him, but how efficient is he going to be at killing him? So far, so good. He's 2 for 2, and boy, oh boy, he made that look easy. Well done.
Cruel, I would like to disagree vehemently with you, because this is not the worst Zelda game pre-2006. These Zelda CDI games exist. Wand of Gamelon is a thing. So, Wand of Gamelon is the worst Zelda game pre-2006. And everyone in chat's going to agree with me.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're probably going to see some spamming of, I can't wait to bomb some Dodongos in chat. Sorry, I had to go there. I had to go there, TJ.
It's way too late for this.
That's all right. But in any event, ooh, taking an encounter on the road, that's not the worst place to take an encounter. Right now, Feasel's heading for the next town. This is the town of Mido, where he's going to deposit that water of life so he can get the fairy spell. But before he goes there, he's going to make another pit stop, TGE.
Yes, and this is one of the most important pit stops in the game because we are picking up the most broken move in the game, the what I like to call the Hyrulean Pogo Stick, but it's the down stab. And if you ever played any of the Smash games, you know how potent down stab can be, but we're going to put it to a whole new level of usefulness here.
Absolutely, and as I've been calling it throughout the entire tournament, this is the most OP thing to have in this game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And BentGlassTube stopping here in the desert to pick up the 1-up. That is not something you're going to see usually in this, but it's definitely a safety feature, and I 100% agree with it in a racing format, especially if you are uncomfortable in some of the later areas, like Valley of Death. I have the Japanese name better. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, we will get to that later indeed. Ooh, BentGlassTube taking an unfortunate counter in the graveyard, and it almost costs him the rest of his life. He's running on a sliver of health, folks.
Now also setting up for the Boulder Dash, and speaking of setting things up, Feasel is setting himself up for the Fairy Spell, which is very, very utilitarian here, because it's going to allow him to move faster, it's going to allow him to skip through some things if he needs to, and it looked like BentGlassTube was trying to go after a fairy there to refill his health, but by doing so, he unmanipulated his Boulder Dash.
Oh, and he takes a death against those Octoroks. So, yeah, it's a good thing he picked up that 1-up, though. So he's down to 3 lives right now. Now, lives are very precious, particularly when we get to a palace in the game where choices mean everything.
Yes, absolutely. And to continue the discussion about lives here, this category, when it's not a racing format, is what's known as a 1cc category. 1cc, of course, is old arcade terms for 1 credit clear. Basically, in the arcades, you put a quarter in, which was a credit, and you beat the game without having to put another quarter in. So if you can't beat the game without game overing, normally it wouldn't count as a speed run. However, because this is a tournament, there are rules in place to prevent that. And the way to do that is if you game over, you have to return to the screen on which you game overed. If it's an overworld, you have to return to the general tile where you were. Once you do that, you may continue on where you were.
Yep, and there's another thing that you got to be careful. And I think you kind of mentioned this earlier, and it has to do with, you said walking on the ceiling with the door, you still have to grab the key that is attached to that door. One thing that is strictly forbidden in the tournament is using the fairy spell to go through a locked door. Now, you can go through the door if you have the key that ties with it. But if you don't have the door, don't have the key that ties to that door, that is an automatic disqualification, even if you go back to get the key later.
Correct. And feasel with a pretty subpar swamp walk there to level 2. Getting multiple encounters is never what you want to see, but welcome everybody to Palace 2, the Swamp Palace or the Midoro Palace, depending on how you want to call it.
Yep, Midoro Palace indeed, and the item in the Midoro Palace is the Magic Glove. And TGE, I've been ranting about this the entire time I've been doing this tournament. You don't question Nintendo logic here with this Magic Glove. The Magic Glove, you would think, oh, it's going to power up your fists or your hands or anything. Nope, the Magic Glove powers up your sword. Why does it power up the sword? Don't ask me why. But what it does do is it enables you to break blocks that are in these dungeons. You're going to be seeing that utilized quite a lot, especially later on.
Yeah, the glove is the only item in the game that is pretty much required no matter what category you're doing. Even in the glitched runs, it absolutely goes ahead and does that for you. But I do want to point out real quick the fact that I completely forgot what I was going to say. Never mind, moving on.
Anyways, there's going to be one screen that Feasel's coming up to that is just absolutely a pain to go through, and you're going to be seeing it very shortly, and you'll see why.
Yep.
Yeah, TGE knows exactly what screen I'm talking about, and it's a screen I think just about every Zelda 2 runner hates it because it's an early run killer, and you'll see it in just a moment.
Yeah, and actually, I remember what I was going to say now. Also, onto the power glove thing. It not only powers up your sword, but it makes your sword as strong as Link's head. No, seriously, when those blocks fall on Link's head, they shatter. You can't shatter them with your sword until you put on some gloves.
Yeah, that is unbelievable that Link's got a strong head on his shoulders. It kind of surprises me that he hasn't landed into the concussion protocol yet.
Well, this is back before concussion protocol was accepted.
That's absolutely true, TGE. This football wasn't around in Hyrule back in the day, and who knows, maybe football is still not around in Hyrule.
Oh,
here's that screen, folks.
Yeah, well, technically it is, but it can only be around actually in this version of Hyrule because in this version, Ganon is dead, so we got some pigskin. And speaking of dead, that room is deadly, and that's why.
That is why I said this is the deadly room. Those bots just trolled Feasel, costing him one of his precious lives. Ouch.
Yeah, so that's going to affect his ability to use some death warps a bit later in the game. And the dungeon that Laz was talking about, we don't necessarily use the death warp to warp to the end of the room, which is what it can do. We use it, I say we like I run the game, we use it to get refills on our magic specifically.
Absolutely right, and especially if you don't get that lucky red jar drop behind the Iron Knuckle statues that are in this palace that's going to be coming up later on.
Yeah, speaking of what Laz is talking about is there are certain statues within all the palaces that have a chance to drop things. Now, in certain palaces, it is a 100% chance of a red jar, and oh my god, that was a glorious block room there for Feasel. And there are other palaces where it's a 50% chance of the jar drop and a 50% chance of the enemy. Palaces 1, 2, and 5 are the palaces that are going to have the guaranteed jar drop. Palaces 2, 4, 6, and 7 are the 3, 4, 6, and 7 are the 50-50s. The enemy that appears is dependent on the palace. 3, 4, and 6 is going to be the red iron knuckle, and 7 is going to be, well, you'll see when we get to Palace 7.
BGT just made his way into the Maduro Palace, and feasel just did a very nifty move there. By using the fairy spell to grab that power glove, he saves on the animation when Link holds up the item. So that saves him some time there. And it's very important in one screen that's going to be coming up later in the game as well. Very, very important.
If you saw feasel stopping to kill that Stalfos, and the reason being is because he still needs to get himself up to attack 5, and then manipulate everything so he can get to attack 6 when he's leaving here. And another red jar. Not as bad here because he can at least use to cast some spells, but still not what he wanted to see.
Absolutely. He continues to find himself behind in experience points. Now, this is what feasel would need. Now, he's on Magic 1 and Life 2. To get to Magic 2, he needs 100 points. To get to Life 3, he needs 150 points. So, he needs to have that many points stored up if he wants to get out of here with attack level 6. The boss of this palace is named Helmet Head. He's worth 200 experience points.
Yeah, so definitely got enough experience in the palace to get to where he needs to go. It's just the earlier you get to attack 5, the easier things are.
And that is very true indeed.
Also, remind me when we get to Helmet Head to tell you my theory behind why Helmet Head's very angry.
Will do. You see that BGT just got the 2,000 points he needs to get to attack level 5, and he's on Magic 2 and Life 3. Now, where he needs to be, and it shouldn't be any problem for him, to get to Magic 3, he needs 300 points. To get to Life 4, he needs 400 points. So he only needs 138 more points to guarantee attack 6 coming out of this palace.
Yeah, he's pretty good in experience. Feasel, on the other hand, is going to need to kill a couple more things, but there's definitely enough experience coming up here in this next room.
That's right.
Should be fine.
Yeah, you see one of the rare times that people are going to grab that 100-point P-bag that's on the disintegrating bridge there. You don't see that very often. Most players usually have the experience points they need to get to where they need to be, but feasel has to kill pretty much everything, as you said.
Are you kidding me? Another red
Wow!
jar.
That's unbelievable, and that's unfortunate because now he cannot get to attack level 6. He needed 150. He's going to have 113.
He can potentially, because he can jump over, or he can go back and get what he needs to. If I'm feasel, though, I'm definitely going to go back and get the extra experience. He might not, but I definitely would.
We'll see what he has in mind. If he does that, yeah, it's going to cost him quite a bit of time. What's his strategy?
Nope.
Okay, another P-bag drop for BGT. He's the one, like I said, the rich are getting richer. Now, what was this thing you wanted to talk about regarding Helmet Head? Or do you want to wait until it's BGT's turn?
No, we're fine. So, you notice that, you get there, and Helmet Head, he's wearing these 2 helmets. But did you ever stop to think why he's here?
Not at all. Why the heck is Helmet Head here? And
Well, here's the thing is Helmet Head, he's not evil. He's just misunderstood because all Helmet Head ever wanted in his life was to be a shampoo model with long flowing hair. But after an unfortunate curling iron accident, he left him in the state he was in, and now he just hides here in the Swamp Palace hoping nobody's going to find him. And then in comes Link, sword swinging, and the first thing he does is attack him. That's why Helmet Head attacks you. He's just misunderstood, and you attack him for no reason.
That's a shame, but that's what happens when you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. BGT just picked up the power glove, and feasel used the fairy there. Good timing there, because you don't want to take damage from those louders. You got to cast fairy right away, and it's required, of course.
If there are 3 total rooms, 4 technically, that fairy is required in this route. I say technically because where we thought fairy was required can now be skipped with a properly timed jump spell. We'll get to that later in Palace 5. We'll address it.
Well, right now we're in Palace 3. This is the Island Palace, and the item that feasel is going to be seeking out is the raft. The raft, hopefully for these players, is only going to be used once. And the only use for the raft is to transport yourself into Eastern Hyrule, where all the other towns and palaces are.
And once we use the raft, it's coming.
Yep. Brace yourselves. That was good. Ooh, feasel taking a little bit of damage there from those blocks, but no other problems. BGT's just about ready to wrap up the Maduro Palace himself.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting route from feasel. So he is on attack 5. Normally you want to be on attack 6 right now. So this is really the first time I've seen this happen in a race. So I'm not entirely sure what he's going to do. I think he might be doing just some manipulation and hope to get things. But again, I don't know what we're going to see. So I'm going to be going on the fly with feasel as much as we are. He may just sacrifice magic and life levels until later.
That could very well be. This is my favorite part of Palace 3, by the way. Feasel's outside getting some fresh air because it's one of the only times you can get some fresh air in the Palace. Got to take care of the red iron knuckle and those orange fiery moas, and no problems there for feasel. But that's the only Palace in the game that does that. I wish more Palaces would have done that.
Which just proves why these are palaces and not dungeons. Dungeons are implied to be underground.
Correct. Here's another room where you've got to be careful where feasel is. Those bots, another room where he's already been trolled once. He definitely doesn't want to be trolled again by him.
And look, another red jar.
This is just unbelievable bad luck feasel has had with P-Bags versus red jars. It's been nothing but red jars for feasel. And ooh, he takes a death against that blue iron knuckle as he was unable to perform the jackhammer on him.
Yeah, that's a very unfortunate death for feasel, so he's going to have to play very, very conservatively here.
And, ooh, BentGlassTube, he was about a hit or two away from his own demise, but luckily he takes care of Helmet Head, going to get the key, and he'll get out of this Palace at 6-2-3.
Yep, and that's where you normally want to be, at least with attack 6 coming out of Palace 2. Feasel on 5-1-2, it's, as we continue on, enemies are going to start hitting harder, so the less life levels you have, the more difficult it's going to be. So Feasel definitely, even though he has the lead, he's definitely at a less advantageous position, all things considered.
And he's not able to get the red jar drop out of that statue. Instead, a red iron knuckle pops out of it. Considering his experience situation, I'm a little bit surprised he wouldn't have gone after it. What about you?
The big thing I'm surprised that actually goes back to Palace 2. When he reached for magic, when he got the experience from Helmet Head, he should have taken Magic 2 for the 100 experience, because he would have ended up at the 150 either way. So that's the thing I'm a little surprised at, is that he didn't take Magic 2 there, because getting to 3,000 without the use of the End of Palace gem is going to be pretty much damn near impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just not enough experience points to go around in this palace where he's going to be able to get to the 3,000. Now, here in the end of this palace, you have Rebanek. He is worth 301 experience points. Yes, folks, 301. Even though the game clearly says 300, the developers of Nintendo evidently couldn't math, and they would not be on my accounting team by any stretch.
Yeah, so more lore time, if you don't mind, a little more of the fun side of things here. Rebanek, his Japanese name translates into Rebel Knuckle, because Rebanek is a blue iron knuckle who is riding on a horse, as you can see on Feasel's side right about, well, now-ish. The reason I say Rebel Knuckle is interesting because Rebel is another term for a motorcycle rider in Japan. So motorcycles obviously don't exist in this sort of fantasy world, but horses do, and they're the closest thing to a motorcycle. So Rebel Knuckle, not necessarily a term for him going rogue on his other iron knuckles, but rather the fact that he's riding something.
Kind of a slow Rebanek fight there for Feasel, and again, a lot of the reason is because he's only at attack 5. Now he'll get out at attack 6, so he's going to be at 6-1-2. That's still not a very favorable position to be in. I mean, I know Feasel's a really, really good player and all, but still, that's kind of scary where you're still at Magic 1 and Life 2 this late.
Yes, but hey, Laz?
Yeah.
Remember what I said about the raft?
Yes, the raft.
Okay, so, this raft, everybody. This raft is going to take us to the eastern part of Hyrule. And the first thing we're going to encounter on the eastern part of Hyrule is a town. Now, this town, for all intents and purposes, is like every other town we see in Hyrule, where there's a trigger that you need to do to go ahead and acquire whatever the spell is that you're going to get from a town. But this is a very special spell here in this town, because the spell we're getting from Nabooru is the fire spell. Now, you might think that your sword shooting fire is a phenomenal idea, and it is a great idea, but it doesn't do anything because it really just makes your sword shoot fire and makes it harder to maneuver. But that's not the part that bothers me here. The part that bothers me is the fact that in order to get this spell, there's this lazy woman here who is thirsty, and she lives 20 feet away from a water fountain, and you have to walk in, get the water, give it to her, and your reward is the fire spell? Seriously? What is up with that, Nintendo? What is up with that?
I have no idea, TG. But what I do know is, to be fair, TG, the fire spell, at least in this version of Zelda 2, is the only way you can kill Tektites.
The only reason you kill Tektites is to manipulate your big 6-count fire is still a horrible spell. I
totally agree with you, but that's just the way it goes. It's a spell. Not too many people like it. Rep 2369 is a huge fan of it, but yes, the fire spell, pretty useless. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled Zelda 2 race.
Alright, so after getting the fire spell, we're going to make our way through this cave. We're going to head up north to the Darunia Mountain area. Now, we mentioned a dungeon or a palace where decisions were going to be made. Coming up is that palace. It is Palace for the Maze Palace. The reason decisions and all that are a big deal is because at the end of this palace is a very angry Wizrobe by the name of Karok. Wizrobes cannot be harmed except by their own spells. In order to do that, we need the Reflect spell. But in order to get the Reflect spell, we have to go on Maze Island. To start with, pick up the kidnapped child, return him to Darunia.
Okay, TGE, I'll let you catch your breath for a little bit. Now, here's a very important thing that I hope these runners remember. Use the fairy spell right now, and here's the reason why. And it looks like Feasel's getting ready, and he's waiting for the last second. Oh my goodness, he forgot to use fairy spell. Oh, and he doesn't get stabbed. I was just going to say, you got to get that fairy spell cast, because if you don't get that fairy spell cast, and you don't get rid of that orange Resolvals there, that orange Resolval is going to stab you for days, and if you're low on health, you're going to lose a life.
Yeah. Interesting. So coming up here is going to be the first use of the encounter manipulations we were talking about earlier. The Darunia Mountain Pass has 2 forced encounters, so you have 2 going in, 2 going out for 4 total. Our runners are going to use the encounter manipulation to take an overworld encounter as opposed to the forced encounter because they are easier. And unfortunately, Feasel getting a fairy there is very disappointing because he was going for a maneuver called a slink. And to try and get that encounterless is normally, if you do your movement right, you can do it. The only problem is fairies move randomly and you can't predict where they go.
Sprite, please.
I prefer Sierra Mist.
No, not that Sprite. I'm talking about the fairy from the Legend of Zelda cartoon, because this was made, this was released the year before the cartoon was made. So anytime I see a troll fairy, I'm always like, Sprite, please.
Hey, it's better than Navi.
True. But nevertheless, Feasel does get both of the Darunia encounter skips. He's now 2 for 2.
And finally opts to take Magic 2, and getting the Magic refill there is good. It means he's not going to have to take the refill here in Darunia. And we have a couple of options coming up for how we're going to get the next attack technique.
By the way, great Rebanak fight there on BGT's side of the board. That was very well played. Of course, having attack 6 really helps.
Yeah, so what's going to happen here is there are 2 potential places we can do stuff in. Feasel, as you can see there, he crouched and then cast the fairy spell. That's going to allow him to duck into the chimney using the fairy spell, which is the much faster version. The old way to do it was what was called the super jump, where you cast the jump spell, jump, try and hit the right pixel and click into the roof that way. The intended way for the developers is to go past it, jump on a small roof, and jump rooftop to rooftop. But we're speedrunners. We like to go fast.
Yeah, that's right. And most of the runners so far in this tournament have decided to use what is called the Fairy Claws method. There have been a few, though, that have still preferred the Super Jump method. And the super jump is technically faster, but you have to nail it on the first try.
I'll take the 1.5 second time loss for consistency any day of the week.
Agreed. Now we see that BGT is also making his way into the town of the brewer, where he's going to pick up the fire spell. Yeah, I know it's only 1 TGE rant per race, but still, the fire spell, you know.
I don't know if I can handle more than one a race.
I don't blame you one bit, TGE. Anyways, there's that reflect spell that you were talking about earlier that Feasel just picked up, and he got that for returning the child to the rightful family. The reflect spell is the only way you can kill Wizrobes, and you definitely have to have it for the Karok fight, because you can't lay a finger on him if you don't have the reflect spell handy.
Yes, absolutely. Interesting note, because we're doing all sorts of strange lore here tonight. In the FDS version, the reflect spell isn't called reflect, it is called reflex.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting indeed. Boy, got trolled on that first set of spawns. It didn't even get near the tile he needed to go, but he does eventually get the skip. Let's see if Feasel can go 4 for 4. He does. 4 for 4 and Darunia skips for Feasel. Well played.
Absolutely excellent there by Feasel. And no, I'm not intentionally going into ASMR mode here. It just, I'm still recovering from ranting.
Yeah, I certainly can't blame you there. Because I keep the tradition alive. When I do my own commentary, and it's just me, I also do the rant as well. Because let's face it, that's how I got into wanting to do commentary, was the rant.
Seriously?
That was one of the reasons. Yeah, I loved the rant. I mean, that's the reason why I followed you, TGE.
Oh, really?
Yeah, your commentary is top notch. And so yeah,
do you know the story about where the rant came from?
Not you, though. That much I do know. Wasn't it? Was it Press J Polk?
No. The rant actually did come from me. The rant was me. But if you remember, I can't remember if it was the race we were doing earlier where we mentioned faking it and faking what we know what we're doing. That actually is where the rant came from, because first off, Feasel's going through Maze Island, and he's going to take this long way around because it's actually the shortest overall, because there's only 2 forced encounters where the other ones have more. But where the rant actually comes from is I was doing the first time I ever did Zelda 2 commentary, I ended up staying on. I was doing commentary for a relay race for a charity marathon, and they had asked me to do Zelda 1, and they didn't have anybody for Zelda 2. And I was going to be doing commentary for the Zelda 2 All Keys tournament last year. I'm like, sure, why not? I didn't know what was going on past Palace 3 because I was learning the game, and I had somebody who was going to be helping me with that first commentary rep, as you were talking about. But that race was that night. So the first time I ever did Zelda 2 commentary was by myself, not knowing what was going on past Palace 3. So I just faked it, and the first thing I could think of was, well, I know that this spell does nothing, because everyone complains about it. Let's just start complaining about it and see what happens. And it just sort of took off from there.
That is quite amazing, TG. Now, speaking of which, BGT, that was an interesting strategy. He went ahead and killed the orange Lizalfos, and he didn't use the fairy spell either. That's the first time I've seen that in the tournament so far. It is worth 150 points, so that's quite valuable. However, unfortunately for BGT, was not able to get the first Darunia encounter skip and is going to suffer the time loss there. Oh, got juked there.
Yeah, the enemies tend to be a pain, and nope.
Okay, Feasel got that 7th magic container, and this is why it's important to get all the magic containers, in addition to, of course, this is a 100% category. Without the 7th magic container, you can't pick up the 8th magic container that's in the town of New Kasuto. And without the 8 magic containers, you can't get the Thunder spell out of Old Kasuto. So that's why it's very important to have the magic containers no matter what you're running. Yep,
absolutely. The only time it's not important is when you're doing the glitched route, because you skip Thunderbird.
All right, now this is my favorite part. This is my favorite Palace game. This 4th Palace. You want to know why that is, TGE?
I am interested to hear this.
Because it's now time for the LOZ Lava Diving Tournament competition. But Feasel didn't dive here. What I've been doing is when people take a dive into the lava bath, take the death abuse that we've been talking about, depending on what they do, if they do any swag moves, I give them points based on the length of the dive, the moves that they do. And so far, Pierpont has done the best dive. He's gotten a 9.5 from me.
Ooh, I'm interested to see more of this. Although we're probably only going to see one death here from Feasel, and that's in that 3rd bridge room, just because he's already died and his lives are a little on the touch and go side.
Absolutely, yeah, because he lost some lives earlier. You can't take as many death abuses as you would like to.
And you mentioned at the start the Valley of Death being a pain. Well, Death Abuse in Palace 4 are one of the reasons you've been seeing game overs there.
Absolutely. You're taking that chance by using the death abuse. Yes, you save a few seconds, but are the few seconds worth it when you get to the Valley of Death? Because we've seen people game over there, and you called that race earlier Saturday night. It changed the race completely upside down and turned the tides and the decision for that matter.
Yeah, but that race on Saturday was great for a different reason. And the reason being there is both Adirondack Rick, who was calling the race with me, and myself, we both thought that one of the two racers was on one life left when they entered the Great Palace. So him and I are legitimately freaking out at this. And then he dies, and we're like, oh my god, it's another game over, it's another game over. Wait, he's still got 2 lives left.
Yeah, nobody knew how many lives he had left. That was insane. I caught the last part of it. Yeah, that was such a great race. It's the closest race we've had so far, and the closest we've come to a tie. Now, here's the second chance for Feasel to take the death abuse. But again, since he doesn't have many lives left, not going to take the death here either.
Yeah, usually in the one-on-one race formats, that second room there is the death abuse that people will skip. Normally you see Bridge 1 and Bridge 3.
Ooh, BGT also getting trolled by Sprite on the way to Maze Palace himself. And that pretty much threw his encounter cycle off as he takes yet another encounter in the grass.
Now, you noticed him stop there and wait for the encounter to spawn on the grass.
Oh, Sprite, please!
The reason he waited for encounter on the grass is because they spawn farther away from you on the grass than they do in the forest. So waiting to have them spawn there means you have a little bit more time to react.
Yep, and unfortunately, yeah, both times Sprite trolling him ended up taking 4 encounters on the way to this maze. Tough break there for BGT.
So you saw BGT there cast the life spell as he picked up the magic container. Reason being is because every time you pick up a magic container, you get a full refill of your magic. So a lot of times you see people cast fairies, they can just pick it up and go. But life is always a good option because, you know, not dying is kind of a good thing.
Absolutely. And again, lives are very precious in this game. Because another thing I want to point out, TGE, is once you pick up the 1-up dolls that are laid across the land of Hyrule, they never come back again, even if you game over.
That is correct. So when you pick them up, use them wisely.
Absolutely.
Or, as the witch says in Link's Awakening, take care, because there's not much there.
Mm-hmm. Now we see that BGT has made his way into the Maze Palace himself. Now, the item, by the way, I didn't even mention the item. The item in this palace are the boots. The boots are used to walk on certain water tiles, and they are a necessity to get access to the 5th palace of the game.
Yep, Jesus boots.
Yep, exactly.
I just want to point out, they are in fact in the same palace. They're just using different TVs or capture software, which is why the colors look different.
Alright, so here's the third and final opportunity if you wanted to take the death abuse. But this is a very dangerous room here. Those floating statues that are called Raws can knock you into the lava if you're not careful, but he's not taking any chances. He's just taking them all out. Ooh, that was a close call there.
Yeah, I just call them Steinway flyers because that's the pattern they fly in.
That's right. Yeah, I remember you called them by that name, and I kept forgetting what they were called. And let's see what kind of dive he does. He's going to take care of this Red Iron Knuckle and not going to take the death abuse. So no dives for Feasel this time around. But again, can't blame him. He lost some lives earlier on. He's going to play it safe. Again, don't blame him.
Yeah, so this is going to be interesting because he's still going to need to get a magic refill. So he is banking on either a red jar or a magic level up.
Yeah, that's right. Ooh, speaking of red jars, BGT does get the red jar in the first death abuse opportunity, so he's not going to take the death abuse. He's back to full magic again. If he doesn't get that drop, he won't be able to use Reflect Spell against Karok, and he'll have to take a death anyways.
Yes, so apparently my sign comment has gotten all the math nerds out in chat, and that's fine. I just want to point out to all of you math nerds, one thing that I've learned is that alcohol and calculus don't mix, so please don't drink and derive.
Ah, nice. There are the boots picked up by BGT. And Feasel's just about ready to end this palace, but he's going to intentionally get killed because he didn't get a magic jar drop. He got yet another pea bag drop. Now he's getting the pea bag drops when he needed the red jar drops. That's just the game knowing right there, TGE.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So now the Remanek is worth 301 experience points, so he'll be set to be at magic or attack level 7 at the end of this fight.
Yeah, still not where he wants to be optimally, but he can definitely finish the game at attack 7. It's, again, not where he wants to be, but it's entirely possible.
Well, absolutely. See what kind of Karak fight Feasel has.
Looks like the worst kind.
Not a good one at all, man. The game giving him all types of trouble. Boy, this is a really slow Karak fight, especially the last couple of hits. My goodness, spawning on top of him? Wow. That was brutal, folks. BGT not opting to take the death abuse in the second chance, so there's only one more chance for him to take a death abuse. He might do so if he doesn't get that red jar drop like Feasel didn't.
You just want to judge a dive.
All right, yes I do. You're not wrong there, TGE. You're not wrong there. And when I do judge, I always do it by half points. Because if you saw the Olympics when they do the divings, it's by half points.
Oh, absolutely. I was a swimmer in high school, so we had a dive team as well. So I fully understand dive scoring.
Absolutely. All right, so Feasel now has made his way into the 5th palace of the game. This is known as the Palace on the Sea.
Yep, and this is actually going to have that room I was talking about where normally you're going to cast Fairy, but a skip has been found, and that skip is known as the Eco Key. And basically you would be casting Jump in a room upcoming and damage boosting off of one of the skull bubbles. Now, depending on how we do it is going to depend. Feasel, I would imagine, is based on let's see what he does here. It looks like, yep, he's just going to go with Fairy, and that's the common way of getting around it. Normally you would manipulate one of those bubbles and just jump off of it. The big thing with the Fairy here is you got to remember to turn around and pick up the key, as Feasel did.
Yeah, we've seen a couple players already in the tournament accidentally forget to pick up the key. When that happens, yeah, you're going to lose a lot of time because you get to that door and realize you're trapped because you didn't pick up the key.
I have seen that so many times in these races.
Absolutely, and it can happen to the best of the players. Now, the item that is in here in the 5th palace is the flute, aka the plunger, or as I've been calling it, the plumber's helper. And what the flute does, there's 2 uses for the flute. Number 1, it is used to ward off the river devil that is guarding the final couple of palaces and the towns of Kasuto, and it's also the only way to gain access to Palace 6, the 3-Eye Rock Palace.
Absolutely, and for those of you wondering why we call it a plunger, well, when you see it, you'll know why we call it a plunger.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly does look like one. We'll see it in a moment. This is a very precarious room. And, oh, but what a fast room that was for Feasel. That can be disastrous sometimes, but that was a great one.
That's probably one of the best versions of that room I've seen in this entire tournament.
Yeah, agreed.
And last year's tournament.
Yeah, that just goes to show how many races he has seen and how trolly that block room can be. Because sometimes those blocks can hit you so hard, so fast, and then it doesn't help that that fiery Moa is there as well.
Wait, hold on. All the races I've seen, are you saying I get around laws?
Yeah.
Okay, I accept that.
Okay.
What I don't
BGT.
accept is this
Oh,
death from BGT.
no! And because of that, I don't think he's going to be taking that intentional death. So, unfortunately, guys, I get to keep the medals.
You do get to keep the medals. Now, if that sine wave fire had knocked him into the lava, however, you would have got to say something.
Yep, absolutely. Ooh, this
However,
red iron
does the
knuckle.
red iron knuckle? Does the red iron knuckle get a score?
You know what? He did a little half twist there. I'm going to give him... I'll give him a solid 8.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Got the little wall bounce going on. It was nice.
Yeah, absolutely. For a red iron knuckle, I got to give him props. So, strike that. Red iron knuckle gets the gold medal. Now, these enemies here that feasel could potentially deal with, these orange enemies that shoot fire that are known as magos, or as I've been calling them, mangoes, worth 200 experience points apiece. Now, because he doesn't have attack 7, it's not going to take 2 hits. I think it's going to take 3 or 4 hits, but if you're short on experience points, these are a good enemy to grind.
Yeah. Feasel doesn't have attack 7, buddy.
Right. Attack 8 is 2 hits, though. Attack 8's 2 hits. I'm sorry, my words, how does?
We speak good here for you.
That's right. BGT is just about ready to take on Karak himself. Feasel will be getting ready to take on Guma, but let's see how BGT does against Karak. Let's see if surely it's got to be better than the Karak fight that Feasel had, but we'll find out.
So back to our more lore, because apparently that's the fun thing to do with bosses here.
Wow! That was
a phenomenal Karak fight.
Yes, indeed. My goodness. Very good.
Back to the Guma fight. Guma is actually another small different translation. In the Japanese version, he's actually known as Boss Guma. And the reason being is, if you remember those red creatures we saw in Palace 1 that were throwing the axes in that parabolic arc, the Doom Knockers? Those were initially called Gumas. They got their name changed in the US translation, but the boss of Palace 5 did not. So that is why he is Boss Guma in the Japanese version, and just Guma in the regular one.
Actually, there is a spelling difference between the two. Boss Guma is spelled G-O-O-M-A, but Guma, or the Doom Rattles as we call them, is spelled G-U-M-A.
So yes, don't worry. I have Barba lore too.
I can't wait to hear that one. Barba's one of my favorite enemies in the FDS version, but of course,
and that's what I'm going to address is the FDS version. Yeah,
I can't wait to hear it.
So what you saw there on BentGlassTube side is he's actually picking up the heart container to the north of the palace before going in. Feasel is not, and the reason Feasel is not, he's going to be using that heart container to set up another enemy manipulation known as the River Dance, and we will address that when we get there.
I could have swore when I was in band I played a piece called the River Dance, but that's another story for another stream.
We're after midnight on the East Coast. You're fine.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, it's midnight where I am as well, so no worries there. BGT also uses the fairy strats to get up there, so he'll have to remember to backtrack and grab the key. Let's hope he does so, and yep, he remembered. One thing I want to point out is BGT, since he's already at attack 8, again, it's only going to take 2 hits to kill those mangoes. But in addition, if he does this properly, he'll get to a point where the next experience level is 9,000 points. And why that's important is because after completing the palace, you'll get up to those 9,000 points, and then you can go on a shopping spree of level ups. And that's how these players are able to get to 886 or 877 or 878 or 887 by getting to the 9,000 points in both Palace 5 and Palace 6.
The big thing to worry about, though, when you reach that level, the mythical plateau of 9,000 experience, is don't take attack 9. Because attack 9 only gives you a 1-up.
That's right, and you're pretty much just wasted 9,000 points. And we have seen that happen before, where they accidentally take the wrong thing. And here is the Guma boss battle for Feasel, and boy, does he pack a punch.
I do want to point out there that it was a very, very, very well executed patient block room there for BGT, waiting to get the blocks before they couldn't hit him, jumped up, grabbed the key, didn't get hit at all. It was took a little more time, but it was very well executed and very, very patient. Showed a lot of patience to get that room done in the way he did.
Absolutely, because a lot of people get a little bit of erratic in that room and they try to rush things. That's when you get into trouble.
I knew you were trouble.
Of course. That's one of my nicknames is Trouble, so there you go.
All right, so the river dance that Feasel is going to be doing here after he picks up his heart container. Starting from leaving this screen, he's going to be walking on the water. He's going to take one extra step, which is going to manipulate everything he needs. Once he takes that extra step, he's going to walk a very specific path. There's that extra step, and by doing so, he's going to step on the grass once to trigger some encounters, and then he should, if he does everything correctly, here comes the grass step now, walk down to the river devil, not get an encounter, should be able to keep walking after blowing the flute and get the encounter skip. That is the river dance.
And does he get lucky?
There
He
it
got
is.
it. Yes, very good indeed. So instead of having to deal through what I like to call Wilson Wall encounters, instead of having to do 3 Wilson Wall encounters, he just has to do 2 of them.
I like that. We just call it fence skips, but I like Wilson Wall much better than fence.
Absolutely, and you could thank Skybill and her community for that, because we see all the Wilson Lurk emotes there, and that kind of got me to calling these Wilson Walls.
Huh, very nice. But this is going to lead us into the final overworld section of Hyrule, where you have 2 palaces and a town. So we're stopping here at this bridge just to reset the encounter tables here, and it looks like we're doing it twice. Now, the encounters, we haven't had a chance to actually get over or explain the overworld encounters here. Beautiful pause strats for a slink there by Feasel. That was a great walk. But the overworld encounters have two different types of encounters. There is timed and there is steps. So based on the amount of time you're on the overworld, you'll get an encounter, and based on the number of steps you've taken, you'll get an encounter.
Like this, TGE, Feasel decided not to employ the fire strats that some of these racers have done in that Tektite cave.
Hashtag Team Feasel.
So we'll see what kind of strats BGT puts up when he makes it to that same cave.
I'm telling you right now, if he uses fire, I'm firmly on Team Feasel.
Yep, and I certainly don't blame you for the reason right now. Here, Feasel here is in the town of New Kasuto, and there's 3 items on the agenda for Feasel. And it's done in a different order than what you see it laid out. First thing he's going to do is get the spell. What the spell does is 2 things. Number 1, it grants access to the magical key that is in the far eastern end of the town. Number 2, when he gets to the Valley of Death, you can turn all of the difficult enemies, the Moas, the flying eyeballs, whatnot, into bots, making the traverse through the Valley of Death much easier. And then the third thing he's going to do is pick up the final magic container. Now, the reason why you get the final magic container last and not first is because you'll have used some of your magic at this point. By getting the magic container last, you'll be back to full magic again.
Yep, and we definitely want to be in that for our trip to the Hidden Palace.
That's right, the Hidden Palace, 3 Rock Palace indeed. And there is the magic key, the best. Well, Feasel unfortunately can't use the fairy spell. He's only got 2 bars left, so he'll have to take it the more conventional way.
Yeah, his leveling has left things a little bit on the wonky side.
Yeah, absolutely. 844 versus 835 at this time. Now, to get to life 6, it's 1,500 points. I was thinking of Magic 6. It's 1,500 points to get to life 6. Magic 4, it's only 700 points. With Guma being worth 500 points, BGT's in good shape.
Yeah, it looks like he's trying to kill these Magos here to get himself life 6 now.
Interesting strategy if that's what he's trying to do, because it's costing him a lot of his life. They take 2 hits, but they also pack quite a punch.
Nope, going for Magic 4? Interesting.
Well, to get to Magic 5, you need 1,200 points, so he's still in good shape.
Yeah, that actually is going to allow him to still get his 9,000 experience from Guma and the 500, so, I mean, all he has to do is kill 1 small enemy. That's going to give him, 15 experience, so that's actually very interesting.
Yeah, that is an interesting move indeed, but I certainly could see where BGT was going with that strat. Ooh, taking a little damage from the bubbles. Got to be careful with those bubbles, because in addition to taking some of your life, they also will drain a little bit of magic too, so you definitely want to avoid them at all costs.
Yeah, it looks like BGT is setting up to try and get to life 8, so I wouldn't be surprised if he was trying to do 888 or at least 887.
Yeah, I've not seen anybody do 888. That would be interesting. Ooh, Feasel getting unlucky in that slink attempt.
Yep, so we still have one more pit stop we're going to make, and Feasel going to stop and get the 500 P bag there to try and adjust his experience a little bit. Now that 500 bag you'll see normally being achieved in the glitch route because you need to get to 252, and that's the easiest way to do it. We're going to pick up the 8th and final heart container.
One of the very rare instances you'll see players pick up a 500-point P bag, but yep, there is a couple of places where you can get a 500-point P bag, including one in the Valley of Death as well.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anybody go for the one in the valley.
Oh no, it's way out of the way, and why risk it? You're going to get the 500 points you need to get to Magic 8 usually, so yeah, why bother?
Why not?
For a challenge, I suppose. I could definitely see that. So here Feasel has made it to Palace number 6, the Three-Eye Rock Palace, or the Hidden Palace. And the item that he's going to be seeking out is the cross. What the cross is used for is to see the invisible enemies known as Moas that are both in Old Kasuto Town, the Wilson Wall before the Valley of Death, and of course the Valley of Death. Without it, you can't see them, and chances are you're going to take a beating if you don't have that cross.
Yep, but speaking of taking beatings, we have BGT entering into the Guma fight.
Yep, and again, he's in good shape experience-wise. Who taking a bop immediately, 2 bops, and even with the shield, a 3rd bop, boy, he's really got to be careful. He's got to use the life spell here. Boy, Guma having his way against BGT. Another bop. He really needs to be careful. Just has, I think, one more hit left. Got him.
Yep. And I do want to really quickly point out here over in Palace 2, or Palace 6 on Feasel's side, for those of you who are fans of Rebanak, don't worry, we've got you covered. We've got not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 more chances to see Rebanak here tonight. So all you fans of Team Rebanak, we got you covered.
Now, one thing Feasel won't be able to do because he already picked up the red jar is, one thing you can do is if you can get that red jar out of that statue, and some people have used this move, and I really like this move, get the red jar and just ferry your way across those false floors and not have to worry about accidentally falling, because falling is going to cost you a lot of time, especially on the way to the cross.
Yep, what he's talking about there is, of course, the false floor. That little hole there has a nickname of the Canadian hole, and I'm not going to explain why, but you're in chat. You know what I'm talking about.
BGT unfortunately not able to get the skip there, and it looked like he got trolled a 2nd time. Yep, so he's going to make a 3rd attempt to get that Wilson Wall skip. This time he gets it.
Oh, God. He almost soft-locked.
That could have been disastrous, folks. And what TGE means by that, the soft lock here, is he was leveling up.
He did.
He does soft lock!
He soft locked.
Oh, my gosh! Oh, my gosh, that is crazy. That is a shame because BGT was right in this race with Feasel, and if Feasel would have gamed over, BGT could have caught up. Oh no, that hurts.
Okay, so what happens there is if you level up on the same frame that you exit a screen from, the game doesn't know what to do, so it soft locks you.
Yeah, what I had seen was, I didn't realize he had soft lock. You might have been a little bit ahead of me, or I might have been a little bit behind you, but I saw that he was leveling up, and then all of a sudden, blank, and there's a soft lock. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that is extremely... Because I didn't think he did. I'm like, that's awful close, and then, oh god.
Yeah, he went from almost soft locking to soft locking. Man, that is too bad, because it looked like he was on a really good pace. Coming out of Palace 6, he was almost 5 minutes ahead of his PB, so that is a tough way to lose a good run.
Yeah, that definitely sucks.
All right, man. So, according to what Shiner CCC says in chat, this is the 2nd time this has happened in the tournament, and it happened also in Prez J Polk's match. Yeah, you never like to see that, but yeah, the soft lock does happen. Now, there's also, by the way, and I didn't get to mention this, but I'm going to mention it now anyway. There's another way you can soft lock in this game, and it happens during the Rebanak fight. If Rebanak is too far to the left when you deliver the final hit on him, you'll see that the explosions kind of appear on both sides, the left and the right. The key ends up not showing up, and that too results in a soft lock.
Yeah, absolutely. But Feasel there going through what we refer to as the lava lamp room. I need the fairy spell to get through that. The final required cast of fairy is coming up too as well.
And I think the thing that caused the soft lock to happen was he was getting a little bit focused on the Riverdance skip, that Wilson Wall skip. When he went back the 3rd time, that's when the problem set in.
And we had a little bit of slight technical difficulties. Camera was not available. Apparently, what Link and Rebanak were doing was not safe for broadcast internet.
Or if you guys are in the European time zones, it's kind of a NSFW situation, if you know what I mean.
Not safe for weekends?
Not safe for weekends. Yeah, that's right. Not safe for weekends.
Anyway, I mentioned I had some lore over here for this boss fight here. Well, this is Barba. In the Japanese version, the FDS version, she goes by the name Volvagia, which is so much better of a name than Barba. But if you've ever played or seen the FDS version played, Feasel almost jumping in the lava for getting the key there, wiping his brow like, whoo! The sprite for Volvagia in the FDS version is completely different. It's something you have to see, and the best part about the FDS Volvagia is Volvagia's cry. It is a piece of art. You have to
agreed. 200% TG. That's why I like the Barba fight in the FDS version, just for that roar. It is glorious. Now, for leveling up, he can use this. He wasn't able to do it. Most people were able to do that, but he used the fairy spell because that's a dangerous room.
Yep.
So now Feasel is here in Old Kasuto, going to pick up the final spell of the game, the Thunder Spell, which is absolutely required in order to defeat Thunderbird. Without it, you can't lay a finger on him, and you can't pick up the Thunder Spell, as I said earlier, without having the 8 magic containers first. So that's why in any way you run Zelda 2, whether it's casually or a speed run, you have to have all 8 magic containers, or you can't get the Thunder Spell. I kind of thought that was coming. DFTG on BGT side of the board because he soft locked. Man, that's a painful way to go out. That was his last race, by the way. So, man, if you're gonna go out, man, that's just not the way to go out. I feel real bad for him.
Yeah, and for those of you wondering, DFTG is a common meme in the Zelda 2 speedrun community. It stands for Dude Wreck This Game.
Oh,
now, interesting thing over on Feasel's side, did you see what I just saw there?
Double juke, yes!
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm talking about. When you don't get this skip, if you don't scroll the screen, there's a chance you despawn the red jar. But Feasel not going for it, so doesn't need it, never mind.
Well, this is what had happened. He had taken a light encounter miss and then a heavy encounter miss. So, yeah, that could have been a despawn right there, potentially. You're right.
But Feasel opting to not go for the jar, which is interesting, especially considering he's at 855 right now. This is insane.
Yeah. Now, I think this P-bag, I'm not sure. I've looked at the map this weekend. You know that's that area to the left that's all by itself? I think that's where the P-bag is, if I remember correctly from looking at the map this weekend.
Here's the thing is, Feasel has done the any percent route, which you go into Palace, the Great Palace at 252. So 855, Feasel can absolutely handle, no doubt in my mind.
Oh, no question about it. But I was just pointing out to people who may have been interested. It's part of the games that you're never, ever going to see casually or in a speedrun. Because, again, I was looking at the map, and, yeah, there is a P-bag hidden in this Valley of Death for 500 points. But let's see how Feasel does against Max the Scorpion. Oh, getting trolled. Oh, kills him. Nicely done.
Feasel picking up Magic 60 at a quick refill here. Yeah, I'm thinking we might be at 866 here for what we see in... And
unfortunately, he's not able to get the encounter skip in the second half of Valley of Death. This time he gets it, but he is very low on life. Does decide to fill up here.
Yeah, this has been a most interesting race just because of the one experience point missing in Palace 2 has affected the entire experience point routing here. So 865 going into Palace, a Great Palace, is very interesting.
Yeah, because with Magic 6, I've yet to see anybody do the Thunderbird fight with Magic 6, but with Magic 6, correct me if I'm wrong, but he can only cast Thunder, and that's all. Am I right?
You are absolutely correct.
Yeah, so this is going to be precarious. No jump, no reflect, no shield. And at life 5, Thunderbird's going to deal a lot of damage. Because remember what I told you, at life 1, he deals 7 full bars of damage. So life 5, it's not going to be fun. That's for sure.
No, absolutely not. This is definitely not a fun spot to be in. But Feasel, again, has the experience to be able to pull this off.
Oh, absolutely. So we'll see how he does here in this Great Palace, the final palace of the game, where he needs to defeat both the Thunderbird and Dark Link.
It's all fun till Daddy takes the T-Bird away.
I was just thinking about that, TGE, and I keep forgetting to utilize this when I do my commentary. Yes, I was just thinking the same thing, the good old Beach Boy song. Yes, the T-Bird.
Mm-hmm.
These spicy chickens here, boy, he made that look easy, Feasel did. Wow.
Yeah, but this palace has my favorite enemy name in the game.
Me too.
And also my favorite enemy nickname in the game. And actually, they're basically one and the same. Now, we're going to have these bird knights coming up. We have red ones and blue ones. But there's a very specific blue bird knight coming up in a room, and he has a name. He is Scott Bakula. And I did not come up with a name. I just love the fact that we have a very specific bird knight with the name of Scott Bakula. But my favorite part about these is the bird knights. And the reason people call them bird knights is because of the fact, well, they look like birds, but very few people are comfortable in properly saying their real name, which is Fokka, which is pronounced Foka.
Yep, focus on the Fokas because they can take you out quick spell. And zombie strats here for Feasel. He's down to pretty much his last pixel of life. It gets through that spicy chicken. Amazing.
That's all kinds of cray-cray right there.
Wow. Now, you mentioned that the bird knight's name is Scott Bakula. I've only got one thing to say about that. Oh, boy.
How did I know you were going there?
Because for those of you who don't know, Scott Bakula, which is the parody of the name Scott Bakula, he was the character in the show Quantum Leap, Dr. Sam Beckett, and that was Dr. Sam Beckett's catchphrase. Oh, boy.
And this guy right here, this is Bakula.
Yep. In this particular room, and just this room only. We will see another blue bird knight like this, but only he is the true Scott Bakula.
And then also Great Palace, best music in the game, and if you disagree with me, I will fight you.
It is a great track. I definitely agree with you. It is a great track. You better believe it. Yeah, those giant bubble, that giant bubble that you just saw there, if you try to attack it and you don't kill it by doing the stab, it splits into 2 very fast bubbles. So you really don't want to be playing with fire with those guys.
Why are we mentioning fire again?
Because we're in a palace that's got nothing but fiery enemies.
Yes, we can use all different kinds of terms. Pyro, fireball, anything but fire.
Oh, sorry. I got you now, TG. I got you.
And this room right here that Feasel's falling through, that's the reason we need the glove. And oh yeah, everybody say hi to Boss Bot.
Watch out! Yep, no problems there. And he'll not take the death abuse. He's going to gamble on the red jars here. There are 2 red jars here in this room, and gets lucky with 1, and he's not going to bother taking the other one, so 1 hit from Thunderbird in his status, and it'll be loss of a life.
Yeah, Feasel sitting there coming. He's going to have to do this the old-fashioned way, which means thunder and go.
Well, he definitely can do it. We've seen some hitless Thunderbird fights before, but this should be interesting. 8 hits is what you need to take down the Thunderbird. Now, how many hits do you think it takes with attack level 1?
It's somewhere in the 200 range.
Not quite that many. It's actually 96 hits, and I know this because I was watching Simple Dude's YouTube video when he was doing the T-Bird fight on attack level 1. 96 hits. Ooh, couldn't quite take him out on that life. He's got 1 life left to go, but this time he'll have full health.
It just feels like 200 hits.
It does, because it's a very, very, very long fight.
But if we're asking that, big question is how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
The world will still never know. Well, that was a clean Thunderbird fight right there. No hits. Very well done for Feasel.
Yep, that was real nice. He's going to take life 6 just because why not?
Yep, why not? Yep, 866. Yep, so it means the amount of damage he'll take against Darklink will be a little bit less than when he was at 865. So no matter what attack power you have against Darklink, it's 8 hits either way.
Yeah, Darklink, one of 2 bosses in the game that your attack value doesn't matter. Karok, of course, being the other one.
Yes, indeed. And that's going to do it. Feasel has officially won the race by taking out Darklink, and that was a hitless final boss gauntlet, folks. Well done for Feasel. About 85 minutes and change.
Well, you can't say it was a hitless final boss gauntlet because he died the first time to T-Bird.
Well, true, but that's a mulligan. I'm willing to give him a mulligan for that.
Oh, we're playing golf now?
Yes, we're playing all kinds of sports here, because in the world of Zelda, they love their sports. Okay, maybe that's not true, but just go with it.
Yeah, sure. We'll go with this, okay?
Oh, okay.
Just remember, everybody, this is Law's one night of the week where they let him out to play. So just smile and nod and everything will be okay.
Exactly right.
So I'm going to assume, based on the level of salt, that we're probably not getting an interview here. I think it's best for everybody involved. So we'll check and see if that's going to be a thing. If not, we're going to send you guys somewhere.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
Not bad, not bad.
So I guess I just have to ask, being about, 38 points short in Palace 2, how crazy was the rest of that run after that?
I kind of gave up at that point. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I'll be able to fix it. And then I screwed up the next level, the next Palace, one after it.
Yeah, it got really crazy for you as you continued your way through the rest of the palaces. I mean, yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience to say the least. That's for sure. That so you were getting red jars for days, and then there was a point in the game where you desperately needed a red jar, and sure enough, you get the pee bag.
Yeah, right. That red jar would have helped me save a life there, but yeah, too bad. The thing is, I always say that the leveling doesn't really matter too much in this category, and I don't know, it kind of does, but at the same time, just focus on moving forward, really. And it worked in this case, but man, those 2 accidental deaths, that actually set me back a lot further than the leveling mistake. Having 2 accidental deaths, it really just made everything a lot riskier.
do see that we have BGT also in the commentators booth. BGT, very sorry about what happened with that soft lock, because based on what I was looking at, you were well ahead of your PB pace, and this is going to be a good time for you, and you might have gotten back into this race because of the leveling situation Feasel was going through. What happened there with the river dance try?
Oh, I don't know that it was really a river dance try. I'm not good at the encounter skips or anything, but I just wasn't paying attention to my XP, and the level thing popped up, and I was like, oh, I don't see Link, so pretty sure this is a soft lock, and there it was.
So that's why the soft lock was delayed, because I was thinking he barely missed the soft lock. TGE was saying the same thing as well, and then once you did the level up, that's when the soft lock happened right then and there. I have never seen it happen at that particular instance, though.
Yeah, that's actually the first time I've ever seen the soft lock, so I was like, maybe I missed it, and did my levels, and did not proceed with the game, so I figured I had found the bug.
Yep, the bug that we all know exists.
Yes,
Hey,
now I
you
can confirm I've
true
seen it.
Zelda 2 speedrunner, because everyone gets that at least once.
Yeah, but yeah, I had a pretty good pace. Messed up my leveling in Palace 4, skipping Magic 4 there, but it was easy enough to recover in 5. So other than that, I was having a pretty good run. I don't think I would have beat Feasel regardless, just I'm not that good at the game.
Yeah,
you can beat it, which means you're good at the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Beating the game is an accomplishment by itself. I know when I played this game a long time ago, it took me 2 weeks to beat, and I was playing like 4 hours a day.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, this game is completely unforgiving.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I remember as a kid getting to Valley of Death and just giving up repeatedly. Like, that part is just nuts.
Yeah, even for seasoned Zelda 2 speedrunners, Valley of Death can be cruel. We've seen it happen a few times already in this tournament.
I'm a seasoned Zelda 2 commentator, and Valley of Death is still cruel.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess you could still consider me a rookie. This is my first tournament, but I'm starting to get the hang of this. And yeah, Valley of Death is no picnic. So this ended up being your final match of the tournament, BentGlassTube. So will we expect to see you back if we do another one of these tournaments?
Yeah, I'll probably do it again. It's fun for me to go 0-4 in tournaments, even though it doesn't sound that fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm glad you had a lot of fun. You'll get better at this, and yeah, you were on your way to a big PB when that unfortunate thing happened. I know you'll get some better times along the way, but glad you had a lot of fun. And you have any other questions for BGT or Feasel TGE?
I got nothing.
Yeah, me neither. Feasel, by the way, with that victory, this was your first race, so you go to 1-0, and this is quite the bracket that you're in right now. This group here, this is Group C. ProJN, man, he is just wiping the floor, and you still have to face ProJN. So, give us your thoughts about any of the upcoming matches that you're going to have to face later on in Group C.
Well, I'll tell you the match that I'm least worried about, and that's the one against ProJN. Because I think on his worst day, he's going to do better than my PB. So I think that one's just going to have to be Jan's. It's the other ones that I'm worried about, because I have to be the second highest ranked person in the group if I want to advance. So really, it's basically everyone else besides Jan that I'm concerned with right now.
Yeah, that's right. So, yep, anything can still happen. Yep, top 2 players in each group advance into the knockout round. So, again, congratulations on your victory, and best of luck to you in the rest of the tournament, Feasel.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I think that's going to do it. Why don't you go ahead and lead us out, TGE?
Alrighty, so with that, everybody, I want to thank you all for watching, especially considering we sort of threw this together at the last minute. But again, make sure if you haven't already, you follow both of our runners, twitch.tv/feasel and twitch.tv/BentGlassTube. Make sure you give both of them a follow. And again, huge thanks to our tech guy behind the scenes here, Mr. Cab, who jumped in at the last minute to help us stream this. So again, give some shout outs to him. Massive, massive thanks there. So on behalf of all of our runners, our tech guy behind the scenes, and my partner here in the booth, LOZ Cards Fan 23, I am the Green Leaf Vector, reminding everybody that no matter what it is you are currently doing, it is always correct to blame me.
So long, everybody. We'll see you next time.